Well, hello and welcome to episode 2 of Beyond the Blackboard. I'm your host Sunil, and in this episode, I'm joined by Mr. Masoom Kumar, who is currently an AI expert at Volvo. His career spans from engineering to cutting edge data science, and his journey from cognizant to building intelligent transport solutions today at Volvo. Mr. Masoom brings a unique blend of tech, industry, and insights to the table. Thank you so much, Masoom, for your time for joining me in this podcast.
Thank you, Sunil. Good to be here. And yeah, excited to
Good.
get the ball rolling.
Right. Wonderful. Masoom, this podcast will be divided into three segments. The first segment is called Learning Curve. So, where we'll talk about your career, and most importantly, we'll talk about how you got into AI and what AI is all about, generative AI, and there's so many things to discuss about. And the second segment is called Spotlight, and where I'll put you in the spotlight, and we'll discuss some contentious issues revolving AI. And the third segment is called Futurecast, where we'll look into your future and how your career is going to shape up, how organizations will have to shape up, and plenty more to discuss. Let's get started with the first segment, Learning Curve. So, Masoom, you've had a fascinating journey, cognizant where you first started to Volvo. So, can you just walk us through, how your career has evolved?
Yeah, so I should go a little bit back in future also before I got my first job. So my career has been all around automotive and like trying to make sure that I've been always fascinated by cars since early childhood days. And then I think that somehow translated into me taking mechanical engineering as a discipline. And then eventually I think that has brought me to where I am. But how did it all start with Cognizant? So after I finished my courses, it was more like, okay, let's try to get a job. And then Cognizant happened to be the first one. But very quickly, like within a year, I realized that probably that's not the right option for me. So I should like move on to something else. And then I think I made a switch to Delphi, which was my first entry in the automotive, let's say, domain, where I started to work as a calibration engineer. And that has been a fascinating first step because all my life I've been thinking about how to tune the cars to make them good, and now I was actually doing that job. So that was a good next step. And then things, I think like one thing makes the other thing happen. And then I thought, okay, what's
Yeah,
next?
yeah.
And then I went to Europe to do my master's degree in automotive engineering, and then spent a decade over there working across both the car and truck industries, working on different aspects of powertrain development. And then I think how I ended up in AI has been also because of the understanding of the domain. Since I've been working in powertrain for so long time across different things, it helped me make the right connections on how things are, intertwined. And then where does the application of AI come into picture? Because if I started AI first, then probably I wouldn't have figured out all these things. So I think one important learning has been the understanding of domain is very critical, and you need to know what problem you are solving. And then AI is just a tool to solve the problem.
Okay. Yeah, that's sounds interesting. So I just want to know, like, we are Indians. We were born in India, and the kind of education system we've had in India. And you went to Sweden to do your master. So how was the education system? Just I want to know how is it different there? I mean, is it something that I just like to know, like, how is the education system very different there in Sweden compared to India?
So the primary difference I would say is that it promotes a lot of critical thinking, and that's I think very similar to other Western countries where it's not about how much you score in the exam. Of course, in some countries that does matter, but a big part of the curriculum has been this is a problem statement. Take your time, solve it, and try to see what different ways you will, like come up with to solve the problem. So then, and also the examinations were more like open book exams. So you did not have to like remember formulas. It was again more about like trying to understand the problem, and you have all the necessary resources with you, and then chart a solution. So that was the main difference that I saw. And one other important difference is that the universities are very tightly coupled with the industries. So that helps, like exchange the knowledge. You get a lot of understanding of what's happening in the industry, and then you can gear yourself in the same way. And the courses are also very much designed to cater the needs of the industry. So even without going in the industry, you have a pretty good understanding of the general tools that are used over there, the general way of working, and then you get a lot of assignments, which are basically some small studies at industrial level. So I feel like that helps you connect to the actual work even before you step in.
Yeah, and one more thing about open book exams, they tend to be more tougher than the normal exams. Let me tell you,
Yeah.
because uh,
Then the focus is more towards
well,
getting the value out.
yeah, I know. I think it's a more practical way. I think they uh, teach you, I think, with a lot of visualizations and how to visualize a lot of things, which necessarily they don't teach in India. I think that's one very important aspect of education there. So I would like to know what is it? Okay, so you told me that you now you're fascinated by AI and you were thinking about what solutions and you thinking of a problem statement and think how AI can help you solve that problem. So what is it about AI that really sparked something in you that thought that okay, I should join this bandwagon right now, which
So for me, I would say it's more
everybody
about,
seems to be.
yeah, I mean, it's for me, it's more about like solving problems that was quite hard to do before. So it's not like you could not solve them, but the time that it took to, like approach that problem was quite long. And then with the inclusion of AI, a lot of the steps have been short-circuited. For example, I've been a lot in the software field, doing software for powertrains. So software like drawing those model-based diagrams or writing code, that was the main friction point. I'm not saying I did not enjoy it, but that was very templatized, the way you write code. So now I think with AI being able to assist you and in some cases actually writing a very good piece of code for you, you focus more on the human aspects of it. You try to connect more with people. You try to talk to people. Like you try to understand the core of the problem. You think more about the business rather than coding, spending most of your time over there. So I think that's just one example, but I guess it's true for every field. If you try to somehow get a computation of the amount of unnecessary works, even though it's important, but it's not very strategic, that's done in an organization, I think it will come up to surprising numbers. And it's just because everything has to be done by someone. And it is important to do that, but maybe it's not where all the time has to be spent. And with AI, I think that possibility of those kind of work that are important, they can be automated to some extent, in some cases semi-automated, in some cases fully automated. That frees up a lot of time for you to think about other things. So you become the guy who just oversees the solution and maybe does a accept, but then you have a lot of spare time which you can spend in talking to people, understanding the business. Like it's just a different way of rewiring your brain. And I think this we will see this more and more as we go down in the future, and more people are able to develop this ecosystem of small little agent that does their tiny little work here and there, and then they spend more time in taking part in understanding business. And yeah, and that's where the real value is, as per me.
Yeah, I do agree that it has definitely improved productivity of people. That's certain something that I buy into because what used to take primarily before about 4 to 5 hours, for example, you're able to do it now maybe in an hour or something, and you're able to spend more time on the core activities,
Yeah,
which used to
exactly.
take up a lot of time. Yeah,
Yeah, and you become more like strategic. Because earlier strategy was there were people assigned to do a lot of strategic thinking because there was a lot of work that had to be done by other people. But now you can also be a part in contributing to the strategic goals of an organization or in general, change your mind in terms of thinking strategically because now you have this agency that can do X percentage of work for you.
yeah. So now you came from a traditional engineering background. I mean, is it something? Did you face any challenges while you migrated more towards data science and AI things? Were there any particular challenges that you faced?
So one thing that has been advantageous for me has been that I've always liked coding and programming in some senses. Like programming is more like architecting what I should do, and coding is implementing it. So I think with this generative AI, the barriers for going into the technicalities has gone down quite a lot. So I would say it was very natural, like shift towards AI. And it hasn't been challenging in that aspect. I think because the domain problem has been in my head, and now I have a key to solve all those problems. But yeah, I would say that starting is quite easy, but making these systems work reliably is quite challenging because of the hallucinations
Yeah.
and the known problems of the system. But I think that's where the value also lies. As you can make things work in a very limited domain, slowly you can open up that domain, and the models are also improving all the time. There is a bunch of applications around it that are being built to make developer task easy. So I think it's a very good time for anyone who is interested to just get into this process. And of course, there will be challenges as it comes with any kind of learning, but the progression, what I see, is much faster because both knowledge and intelligence is available to you. So you can literally use AI to help you build AI in some senses.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, certainly. So now let's get into the hot button issue, which is the AI. And so I want to let's get into the basic of AI for my benefit and for the benefit of the audience. So how would you define artificial intelligence in your opinion?
I would say
What is
artif
artificial intelligence?
Yeah, it's it has both technical and philosophical aspects. Maybe let's try to play the layman game because that's where it should strike the most with the audience. So earlier, I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
if you look at the pre-22 ChatGPT, pre-ChatGPT era, then AI also existed during that time, and then you had this traditional statistical based approach or also deep learning based approach where the usual job of these models that were trained was to predict something. And then there was a very templatized way to do that. And it was very much restricted to a bunch of people who knew how to write code. And for example, they used like open source framework. Then came ChatGPT, and this was totally transformational because this was something that was accessible to almost everyone. So you could talk to it and then it talks back to you. And then you could talk to it about anything. And I guess if we start to draw a line from November 22 when ChatGPT was launched to today when ChatGPT has launched their agents, I would say you get similarities to how a human mind works. So the idea is that now the LLM can be thought of as a brain that has reasoning capabilities like we humans do. And then what do we do by reasoning? We take some actions and we observe the results of those actions, and then we do the next action. And then we go in this loop until we solve a problem. And if you see, the LLMs can also be made to do the same thing because in digital world, they can act as reasoning engines and they are being given possibilities to take different action. For example, if you have to write a let's say a offer letter to someone, you would think about what you should do. Maybe you would take a template and then copy it in a word and then change some names and then eventually save it. And if you see, the LLMs also can do the same thing because they cannot do this on their own, but they have capabilities to like take actions where they could open an existing Word document, they could read through it, they could frame a new one in a new Word document and save it. So it basically becomes like a digital clone of yours, which is not 100% accurate in doing its activities, but it kind of does, let's say, 60% of a lot of activities. And then you as a human just tries to do the finishing up job by reviewing it. So that's how I would say we should look at it. And then this AI is capable of also like doing this traditional AI, which has been building predictive models because they have learned a lot of stuff. So yeah, in short, like it's digital clones of you. It's just that you need to learn how to make your digital clones. That's where the value lies.
Yeah. Okay. So how would you define, for example, intelligence? Say, for example, I mean, I'm trying to understand. Let's take an example calculator, right? So you give it some inputs and it generates an output faster than a human and probably more accurately than what a human being would do. So based on your input, so how is that intelligence different from? Is it different from what we are seeing today, or is it? So how would you classify that as intelligence in the first place?
Yeah, and again, that's a very hotly debated area. Some scientists say that this is not intelligence. This is more like a parrot speaking the next most probable word. But if you see how we build the common knowledge, it's more like when you need to say something, you have a lot of experiences collected in your brain. And we are, in some senses, not exactly the same, trying to also put out most probabilistic words that might complete a sentence. So, yeah, in those ways, there are similarities. But then again, if we think about the actual way a human brain works, I think it's very different from how a LLM works because I'm not a neuroscientist in that sense that I can go deep down, but the way we think and we act is again very different from these LLM. But yeah, the nature in which they start to react to your inputs is quite like you would get from another human, and that's why it starts to feel like, yeah, it is intelligence in some senses. I do not have a very clear answer. It's more
Yeah.
like in this gray zone.
No, I'm just trying to think aloud. So, for example, let's talk about artificial general intelligence. Now, for example, the human brain. Now, for example, if you train it on a particular, say, a game like chess or something, a human brain. So, if you give it something similar, or if you give it another game, say, for example, a human brain is able to generalize between, and then we are able to then adapt to it quickly. Whereas, for example, if you take artificial intelligence, if it trained on something, and then if you give it something else, is that realm still not yet come where we are going to see some AGI? We are getting into the mode of AGI, some artificial general intelligence. Can it do? Is it really capable of doing something like that?
Yeah, like I understand. Like it's more about learning new stuff. And I think in training, the learning is very much confined to the data that is shown to it, and it is able to generalize it, but not to a huge extent, I would say. Or I think it's pretty much confined to the training data. But then again, like when it comes to generalization, like we humans do, oh, I think we need to do a recut of this. Okay, can you put your question again?
That's okay. So what I was talking about is general intelligence. Say, for example, for example, how the human brain adapts to different. For example, if we play a particular game and then we are given something similar or another game, the human brain is able to quickly. We are able to quickly adapt and generalize a lot of things, and we are able to do it. So people are talking about artificial general intelligence, AGI. So what I want to know is, are we going to see this sometime in the future where, these artificial intelligence systems might be able to generalize a lot more stuff, or is it not, maybe not possible for these systems to be generalized that way?
I mean, if you see the instances of generalization, I would say it can already do a lot of that. Because, for example, a common example has been sentiment classification. So it has seen a lot of that kind of data in training related to sentiments, and like this is a good rating, this is a bad rating. And then you can see that it's able to generalize that in a, how do you say, in a current context. So if you like, let's say if you show it a lot of car reviews where reviews are good or bad, and then if you try to show it another type of review, it is able to do that. So I think if you look at this model, these are quite generalistic in that sense, and probably a big part of the generalistic ability has come because it has been trained on a vast amount of data. But then there is also very strong, at least conviction amongst these big labs that we need another breakthrough architecture. So the transformer architecture is limited in this sense. We need something more to reach that AGI kind of intelligence that we are talking about, where we have more capabilities to generalize stuff that hasn't been seen before.
Do you think it's
And
possible that it can really come up to that level?
if you see some of the examinations that these AI models are put through, for example, the joint entrance examination that we have, they already outperform the humans in terms of scoring. So, and then there was also this exam, I forgot, on which these LLMs are benchmarked, and there they
Yeah,
have
yeah,
been
there
improving
is.
quite rapidly.
Yeah, there are some benchmarks where proof Q&A, for example, GPQ, it's called Google Proof Q&A, where even with access to Google, so normal human being can get only about 40%. A PhD can get about 65% correct, and the LLMs are able to match that PhD level.
Yeah, so in that sense, we already see there is a lot of generalistic abilities in these LLMs, and how that happens, I do not understand. And I mean, it's a big area of research to understand what happens under the hood of the LLMs. And I heard a session from Anthropic where they were talking about that there will be a lot of job positions regarding observability, like understanding what goes behind the box, because even these big companies, they do not understand how these models actually work, which is quite fascinating because they are the ones who train the model. They should ideally be understanding everything. But yeah, like if we just have to consider the capabilities of these LLMs, if they are guided properly, if they are all these different elements are orchestrated properly, they are able to do well at examinations where the typical, like application of knowledge is very important. Like you learn something and then you need to apply it to solve a problem. So we already see that, but maybe there is some more breakthrough needed in this architecture or somehow where this capability just improves several fold, and then we say we are going to AGI, where we have like infinitely quicker discovery of new materials, or like we are able to invade Mars. I think that's the capability we'll get. But again, like my knowledge is quite limited in this sense.
No, it's okay.
Uh,
I mean, we're not experts on everything, but I just wanted to get your perspective on, because I had a little bit of difficulty understand what exactly qualifies as an intelligent system. Something which,
I can give a small point. Like I heard once Jensen Huang, someone asked him like, "What is AGI, and when we will get AGI?" So he was like, "Yeah, AGI is a very fluid definition as per him." So he was saying like for some people who are just used to like tabulating numbers in the Excel sheet and being able to draw plots and like make some inferences, if that's the definition of AGI, then we have already exceeded that. But then there might be some people who are quite deep into molecular research, and there we haven't been able to push these models at the same level. So maybe for those people, AGI still hasn't arrived yet. Sometimes if you just walk to a layman on the street, probably you have exceeded the AGI as per them. And which is also important to consider because there is a societal value or there is a societal aspect every time these systems are able to do certain activities that a bunch of humans were doing. And that brings us back to this question, like in large organization, there is a lot of bloat. In some senses, it's not like people are not needed, but there is a lot of routine work that has to be done. And these LLMs can do that. And earlier, this was considered something that the humans must do. So now you have something that does that, and then you can call it AGI to some senses, to some extent, and that carries a lot of societal value. So even before we get the actual AGI, the small, I wouldn't say small, but these rapid developments are already making a lot of things possible, which was not done before. And a good example is like the customer service. Today I was trying to like shift my connections on Airtel to my new apartment, and then basically it was quite difficult for me to know how to contact the customer care. So been just doing using the chatbot and being able to shift my connection. So yeah, so then maybe the
I know so what you're trying to say is it's sort of AGI is relative. There's no one definition. It depends on your
who you're
perspective of
talking to.
and how you're able to put this point across. So you've worked in large organizations. How are they generally receptive towards AI? Are they kind of skeptical about the things that they do? Are they excited about many things that you can do, or is a bit of both?
With most of the large organization, and I mean I cannot speak so much about things inside Volvo, but at a generalistic level, I would say the large organization have some inertia to everything. And this is common across all the surveys that small organizations are very quick in adapting because the decision making is quite quick. But in large organizations, which are scattered all over the world, it's very hard to get the consensus to do something. And it's not that the leaders don't realize that this thing doesn't work. I think they realize the power of this technology, but in large organization, there is so much at stake when it comes to making the data secure. And I think that's the foundation that takes a lot of time. Like first thing, we never cared about data. Like in a big organization, we have a lot of data, but no one actually uses it so frequently. But now we have something called AI, like this type of AI, which could help you gain a lot of boost. But now a lot of organizations are realizing that the data is not in place. You need to have the right databases, it needs to be structured to some extent. So I think that's where a lot of work is being spent. How do we like make our data sources available to these AI systems? And I think once that happens, and then the security issues, like because traditional organizations, especially in the automotive industry, they are quite restricted about what goes through the API calls. Maybe the tech industry is much more like fast adopter of this. So also this trust building that takes time at the higher levels, and then unless everything is not as per the process,
Yeah, I know.
yeah, things don't fall through. And I feel like the if you think about traditional automotive companies again, they have been building these cars, trucks, and buses for hundreds of years, and they have established the process and they trust the process. So now something new comes up that makes them rapidly change their processes, which is very hard for them to do. So also it's like this, yeah, maybe if I do this and break four of my processes, maybe my trucks become unreliable, and that has a huge upfront cost. So I think that's natural to go that way. And it's also nice that it's debated. We should move fast, but then there are reasons also of not moving fast, which are also quite valid.
Yeah, I know. You've been doing something for a number of years and you're in that comfort zone. And suddenly to see these disruptions happening and not many people actually are really, really ready to come out of that, to be honest. There will be a lot of roadblocks. People will not
Exactly.
readily accept some change which will bring about disruptions to their existing way of working so many years. Right. Yeah.
And just to add, like, I mean, it's about AI, but I see a lot of organization or, like places where you still have to fill in a lot of information in the register. For example, when I go to drop my son to the preschool, I need to enter the entry time, exit time. And I always think like this doesn't even need AI. It just needs a simple app where you scan and then it should be automatically registered. So I think there are some things that it's a process. This is how you do it. And then it's very hard to come out of that process for
Yeah.
some parts of the organizations.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Because I mean, even the human mind, the human brain, sometimes it gets used to one way of working, and you're used to seeing it day in and day out happen that way, and suddenly you're forced to change a lot of things. Not everybody is quite receptive to that. Right. So we've had a fascinating discussion. So let's move on to our next segment called Spotlight. Awesome. Here it comes. So. Uh, I'll start with some numbers. 2024, about 1.24 lakh jobs were lost. 2025, about 62,000 jobs were lost. Meta recently laid off about 3,600 employees. Salesforce fired more than about 1,000 employees. Their CEO himself said that AI systems are responsible. So this is, I mean, we spoke some of the benefits of AI, but this is one of the dark side, I would say, of AI, where you see all these job losses happening, and it's hard to not be, threatened by it. Feel out of your comfort zone, having sleepless nights about what's going to happen to me. So how realistic are these numbers? Are these exactly attributable to AI systems? Are there something else, or are we going to see all this in the future?
Yeah, a very good question. Probably one of the most asked questions. So, I mean, we need to be very like transparent about it that yes, it has the potential to like disrupt some jobs. And we see it happening faster in the tech industry because as we talked about, like lots of companies, even like big tech companies, have a lot of bloats. They are incentivized to clean that up very quickly because they have this high level technology and they are also pushed to, like maximize the profits in that sense. So I see that happening quite fast over there. And also it's natural to think if this thing can do software, then why do you need so many software engineers? So I think that's going to happen more and more in the future, and especially I've been also like reading a lot of news regarding the Indian IT service industry, which is a lot about writing code. And of course, like there is a big bunch of project that's the revenue that comes from maintenance, but then there are a lot of new developments happening. So I think there will be obvious questions. If let's say 5 years down the line, everyone is able to create their own softwares, then would these companies even go to companies like Infosys, TCS, or other names? And that means that if that happens, then what happens to all these new graduates that are coming out of the colleges or the people who are there? And then again, with the first an example, I've been using Replit to build some applications and being able to build things that I could not have imagined few months ago. It's because it's a full stack where you have the infrastructure, you have the coding environment ready, and all you need to do to interact with it is natural language. And then it kind of designs the application, creates the UI, creates the backend, connects everything together, writes the test cases. So basically, it acts like a software development engineer. And the cost of software development will definitely go down. So I've been able to do things for 5,000 rupees, which would have taken traditionally like in lakhs. So 3 years ago, I can give you a very good example. Or 4 years ago, we embarked on a journey to like map all the electric vehicles in India, and we created a website called Electric Gadi. So we were 3 people, and it costed like 4 lakhs in 4 months, with a lot of discussion back and forth. Okay, implement that, but then the other person understands something else. But now I can imagine the same website being done for less than 10,000 rupees. So you could, with your own spare time, do these kind of applications or softwares which used to cost a lot of money. So then what does this other company do? They are pressured to, maybe since software building is commoditized, they need to think about another thing that they can build over this commodity. So what else they can provide? Maybe yeah, and it's an ever like a never-ending discussions. And no, I do not have a very clear answer on what's going to happen down the line in terms of job market. One thing is very definite: everything will be shaken. The organizations will go a lot of restructuring going down the line as things become much and much easier. And it is very likely that if you are not up to this technology, at some point it might impact. And of course, it depends very much to the industry. If you're a plumber, maybe not in the immediate future, but if your job was just to do UIs, that might be very quickly not outdated, but either you do like UIs faster, or instead of 10 people, 2 people can now manage a lot of UI development. So it's definitely approaching in that sense. And I guess the job displacements, probably some part of them are reflections of the changes brought by AI. But again, on the other side, some sectors like automotive or maybe manufacturing, which do not move as fast, this impact might not be immediately available. But maybe there are like when humanoids come, then they might automate a bunch of jobs in the factories. And we already see with this car companies like Tesla, Neo, and Xpeng, they are deploying robots in the assembly lines and trying to teach the robots to do something. So 5 years down the line, it might be like, okay, we don't need even human workers for physical jobs.
Actually, Elon Musk had jokingly said that in an interview, it said that at some point we'll have to think of a universal basic income for humans because a lot of things will
Yeah,
disappear, and so I was joking that maybe I don't know what's in store.
no,
Uh,
no idea. And everyone is guessing. I think the only thing that we can do right now, as long as it's possible, try to, yeah, just embrace this thing. Yeah, I think it will be a journey for all of us to find our North Star on how to survive in this age of AI.
Well, I mean, sometimes, see, when we were growing up, and even, I mean, until maybe a couple of years, 3 years on, so we used to have technological changes like maybe once in 10 years. You saw a major technological change, and you could see some disruptions in jobs and creating new kind of jobs and people. But now everything seems to be happening like every 6 months there's something new, and things are happening at a very rapid pace now. That this is what is worrisome. Uh,
Exactly.
and can we keep up with this pace? Is what uh, it's worries me also sometimes. Uh, since we are used to seeing all these technological changes happen over a long time, and now suddenly uh, uh, these disruptions are happening. Yeah, so what do you think are some of the areas which are heavily threatened now by?
The lowest one hanging fruit is, I think, creative writing, blog posts, like
Yeah, I
those
was
kind
coming
of
to
things.
that. It's coming to that.
They are quite easily replaceable. And I mean, not replaceable, but in some senses, we have seen companies downsizing who were just like into this writing kind of thing. And then, of course, like in terms of software engineering, we do see an impact, at least at the big tech companies. I'm not really sure how it's happening at the smaller companies or service industry, but definitely there is a pressure point over there. So yeah, I mean, maybe the activities that require deep scientific work, that might still be out of the bounds or where the domain has been very constrained, that these models haven't been able to capture that because there is so much information within these enterprises that's not out there on the internet. So maybe that's where it will bite the on the last side. And like if I talk about the automotive industry, the embedded code, that's not there on the internet. So it's very hard for the LLMs to write good ASIL compliant LLM codes like that with all the functional safety in place. But for other things like Python and Java, yeah, it can write a lot of things super fast.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so since you were talking about creativity, that brings me to another interesting point. So last year, there were three authors who sued Anthropic because for copyright distribution. That is what they claimed was some of the the Claude AI was trained on some of the pirated websites which downloaded these books, distributed all these books, and these three people, these three authors went to court and they won the lawsuit, and Anthropic, which was forced to settle for. And you spoke about creativity. Now, writing blogs used to be a niche skill. Not everybody could write the kind of blogs. Is creativity also getting threatened by all these things? People are thinking, you know what, my creative work is today. A lot of things AI. I mean, for example, writing books or writing some blogs. AI can do it in a matter. I mean, this. How real do you think this threat is?
Say yes, it is replacing some of the creative job, but it doesn't like kill creativity. So you can probably use it to be more creative. So I feel like at this point of time, the AIs cannot replace the human ingenuity, like thinking about a problem for hours and days. So when it comes to creative writing, okay, maybe if I just want to write how to install Python and get started with ChatGPT, everyone can do that. But again, writing a good creative piece with the help of AI is still challenging because you need to think about a lot of different vectors when it comes to actual writing. And the people who have been deep down in writing may be able to use this AI actually to their advantage. So it's like this that if you have been a very good software engineer, then you can exploit this AI to actually do a lot of good software in a short time at even much cheaper price than a newbie. So, okay, I do not know any software engineering, and maybe if I have to develop some website or something, I might still be able to do it. But the cost and the time it will take me, even with the AI, might still be high. And then it involves so many things when it comes to developing a software. So I guess when it comes to writing, it seems like you just write, but probably it's an entire discipline on how to write good things. And you can make your own agents to help you in this process so then you can write faster, you can write better, and you can still be the best writer. So I do not see this replacing creativity, but if you were just a hobby writer, maybe that's where it will pinch you the most.
Yeah, there's a new thing going on now. It's called dead internet. Some people are saying. So since ChatGPT is able to train on everything open source, all the data which is available open source, now you're going to see more and more things becoming subscription based, right? People are for everything. If you want to use this application, you'll have to subscribe, and so as to counter this creativity loss or copyright infringement also. But yeah, so coming to copyright infringement, like how is it going to it's a difficult thing to look at. I mean, this example that I gave you, see the originality. Now, the generative AI can train on this and generate some new material. Is originality going to become a problem?
Yeah, it could be. It's a good question. I mean, the first thing, yeah, things might start to look similar. If 10 people ask the same question to ChatGPT, probably
Mhm.
70% of the answers might be similar. And then in that case, it might end up happening that you get something similar. But again, that's where the human element comes into picture, like what is their objective and how they're guiding these models, which could produce different outcomes. So it so if you were not very skilled into something and if you do not do enough thinking on your side and if you just use that to create something, maybe that will be as good as not usable. But I think the human thinking, deep thinking, I think that can make a difference even with AI to produce varied materials. But then when you talk about this copyright thing, since all this AI has been feeding off the data on the internet, probably without asking. And then it has been also challenged in code, and code told, yeah, the AI system learn the same way as humans do because you also go over the internet and take inspiration. But the important point that people miss is it can do it much faster and it has societal impacts. Me going over the internet and seeing a lot of paintings and learning to paint is a very slow process which will take years to mature rather than ChatGPT generating those images based on what it has seen. And when Sam Altman was asked this question, don't you think that the people who are behind the the aspects of your model, for example, if it's able to draw images in a certain way, then shouldn't you like give some kind of credit back to those people for every image generator or something like that? So of course he was not totally disregarding the idea. It was like, yeah, it makes sense, but like you need to have money. You're already burning a lot of cash to incentivize people using ChatGPT. And then on top of that, if we start to pay all the loyalties, then it will be quite complex. So of course we need to think about this because then everything you write in ChatGPT can be used by OpenAI to generate 10 different business ideas, and then Y Combinator is set up to feed off all the ideas and start something. So it's also equally concerning whatever you type. Is it, I mean, if you are thinking about a cool business idea, where should you type?
Yeah, I know. So there's always that skepticism that your ideas can be stolen.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's. See, public consumption. People voluntarily sometimes give their data for public consumption. It's they'll turn around and say, we didn't force you to give the
Yeah,
information. You
exactly.
gave the information on your own." So that's their defense. And then that's the hypocrisy which comes into, because then we give our information and then we start blaming
Yeah, exactly.
them. But yeah, there's both sides to it. But there are these things which are probably the downside of AI, is what I would call it. Right. So let's move on to our final segment, which is called Future Cast, Masoom. So how do you see your career now shaping up with AI? How do you see, like, at least in the immediate future?
Yeah, what I see is that I feel like I derive a lot of pleasure in like helping people get started with using AI. So of course, a part of my job is to help get applications developed in the enterprise context, but and that will probably go on. But the bigger thing that I feel where I can derive satisfaction from is teaching people, motivating them to take their first steps, because I think that's always the hardest part once they are above over that threshold. And then uh, it's a self, self feeding process. People start to use it more and more, and then they learn more and discover more and then do more things. So I see myself, yeah, one part of me will be developing applications or getting the help of people to get some application developed, but other part of me will always be trying to get in touch with people. And as I told you, like now, since a lot of the work that I do is being done by AI, I can spend more time in connecting with other humans, understanding the human element of what stops adoption, because you can build the best app, but if no one uses it, it's as good as like worthless. And now we are also coming to a point where everyone can build their own solution. So it's also in enterprise, we always think centralized team building, centralized application for everyone. Behind the scenes, if you look, it's a database that you are feeding from and building business logic on top of that with some UI. So if it's the same database is available to everyone, and they also have this kind of system which can build applications automatically, then you don't have to build application for everyone. You just need to enable these platforms that help everyone get independent in some senses. So, so that is also at least a part of what I would like to promote in organizational context or in like social constructs also, that people will have their own agencies and that will differentiate them. How this will happen, I don't know exactly, but we already see that happening on the outside. When I talked about Replit, that's a pretty good example of what building an agency means. Because Replit has this back end, front end, and then you just talk to it, and then it can like design an entire software and connect everything together. And that's what traditionally anything in the digital space is done with. And that was the job of a software engineer and coders. So And then the same extends to also like other domains, even though I'm quite biased with software, like music, making movies. Now people make videos on YouTube, but future it could be like you just make a, there will be more videos, but now people who did not know how to make it, do it well with the camera might be able to do it with some prompts, AI. So maybe Netflix has a separate category, AI generated movies, where people are just able to like make movies by prompting.
Again, we are getting to the realm of creativity, so that's again something that we are able to generate some trailers and all those things pretty quickly about any a particular movie, which never used to happen before. Anybody can now create a trailer about any movie, and that's another. But also, what I discovered was that if you the also a kind of output that a generative AI gives is also, it depends a lot on your human domain knowledge also on certain things, right? So, for example, if I know more about a particular subject, and then I can get more out of these LLMs rather than maybe a novice who wants to get started. The style of prompting will be because no, let's take an example. For example, in Python, to generate prime numbers, multiple ways of doing it, but there is one particular called C of orthogonal, the way to, there's a method to generate the prime numbers in such a way. Now I should know that, for example, to give that prompt to the generative AI to generate that, because if I don't know, if I don't have that knowledge, then probably the answer also will be limited.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel that, yeah, so your domain knowledge also plays an important role in the kind of answers that you give. So I have an interesting question for you. If you could work on any AI problem tomorrow, say, what would it be?
Won't say if I'll be working on any AI problem, but I'm very much fascinated by some of the societal problems which I would like to solve. So one thing would always be upskilling people, because any problem in the society is being solved by people. And if we can empower those people to just be 10x better or 5x better, whatever they can get, I think that's where we can get the maximum benefits. So just make these people very strong. Like if your entire nation becomes quite fit, and then it will react differently. So the same comes in terms of like enabling them. But then also some of the problem statements that I think is like going forward for a country like India, we have a lot of challenges in terms of sustainability. As our cities are growing much faster, you see the consumption is increasing, and then that also causes a lot of downstream challenges in terms of pollutions, land, air, water, whatever you call it. So I feel like that's one area where I would like to contribute in some sense. I don't know exactly how. And then also I have some ideas for contributing to the Indian automotive industry. So yeah, these are some of the flavors. But upskilling is one of the most fascinating things that I think, because that's what I've been like trying to do in Volvo in some sense. I mean, my job is not to upskill people, but talking to them and motivating them. That seems to work quite well. So why not, if I can do it for at a national level and maybe at a global level, everyone can benefit.
Yeah, so my next question was in line, since you mentioned about automotive space. So how is AI going to impact the automotive space maybe in the next 5 to 10 years?
Think it should be mostly towards two main things, sustainability and autonomy. These are two most important challenges when it comes to sustainability. I mean, we are building battery electric vehicles, and maybe different powertrains are coming up, but at the end of the day, what we want to do is decarbonize. And I feel like BEVs are not the solution, but sustainably making the BEVs from when they take birth to actually when they are out of service, like managing that entire life cycle, that has a lot of potential like challenges currently. And that's where you can use the advancements, maybe to find better materials, maybe to find better techniques to recycle the batteries to reduce the wastage. So that's one area. And then autonomy has to be the number, like the equally important area, where we want our transport to be more safe and like free flowing. And when we talked about one of the challenges in the countries like India, where everyone wants to, like families end up having two cars because of the lack of public transport. And then if you see all the cars are sitting all the time. So maybe if there was mobility available on demand, which is safe, autonomous, whatever, people might start to I don't think they will stop buying cars, but it might mean that we have less cars on the road. So, and we drive also safe. If our cars are, even if I am driving alone in my car, but if my car is autonomous, if it's like let's say level 5 autonomous, then I can just sit back, relax, and take the car, take control, and take me to my destination. So I think that also has a lot of it adds a lot of value in your life. So yeah, that's my thing. I don't think I would like yeah we don't need more faster cars or anything else. It's more like we need more sustainable sustainability dialed in and of course autonomy built. But
You
that's
don't
just
want
my view. I don't know
you don't
what's
want the car
the
to go faster in
I
highways,
mean it already
obviously.
goes pretty fast.
So let me just pick you up on the autonomous vehicle. So now what we are seeing is cars are coming, at least the passenger cars are coming with ADAS 2, level 2, level 2 autonomy. So is it possible, at least in India, where we could get to level 5, which is the highest level of autonomy, I guess, level 5 autonomous vehicles? Uh, I is it? I don't know if it's possible to have something level 5 autonomy in India. Where is the autonomous level right now, and can we get to that level?
Yeah, so we are at level 2 autonomy. So we can also like dissect it. What does it mean? So level 1 means you don't, the car is able to control the longitudinal actions of the vehicle when it comes. So adaptive cruise control or autonomous emergency braking, these are more like level 1 system. It just acts in the straight direction, but at the same time, human has to always be attentive, even though the car will do some of the things on its own. But when we say level 2 system, that's when we also add this lateral control of the vehicle, where there is some level of autonomy over there. So then you can think of like lane centering or lane departure warnings or like lane keeping aids where the vehicle is kept in a center line. So where it does do some lateral movements, but then the human is still the actual supervisor. And as we graduate to higher levels of autonomy like level 4 and 5, I think the main differentiation that happens is that these actions will be able to like perform autonomously without human supervision. And I think at level 4 it should be like human should not do anything, and if something and yeah it should not do anything in a clear weather, but I think there is some limitations of the weather when humans should be in control. But when we come to level 5, then it means like in all weather condition you should be able to like the car should be able to maneuver itself, and if there is a problem then it should be able to park itself on the side of the road. So that's level of autonomies. How could AI help in that? And if this is possible in India, I do not have a good answer. But I've been to conferences where I got some insights, and there is a lot of work being done on end-to-end systems. So right now, a lot of autonomy is rule-based, and yes, we do drive as per certain rules, but these rules are sometimes very much region dependent.
Yeah,
In a big
definitely.
country like India, it could be changing from one state to another.
And rules are
Uh,
meant to be broken, that's for sure.
yeah, exactly. And then people might not follow the rules. So a lot of companies are investing in end-to-end systems. So end-to-end system in a very simple way is training it like we train the neural network, or more in simple ways, it's just how we learn how to drive. So let's say when we are driving in India, we know there are some high-level rules, but we also understand the nature of traffic. And that's what a lot of companies are trying to do, like end-to-end systems. And I've also seen in those conferences instances of like using these vision language. So the language models can also now, not language model, but vision language models can also now see. For example, if you have a Google phone, then you can just turn on the assistant and then show it in your room. Okay, what is that? What is that? And it's able to talk to you in real time. So they showed that with using the vision language models, there is a lot of work that has been now done to like do a lot of off-board computations, meaning that when we have the video feed, we are able to annotate the video feed with a lot of things and use that for simulations. And in the cars, the real challenge is the latency. So there was this German institute, I think it's TU Berlin or TU Munich, I do not remember the university. They did a demonstration vehicle where they were able to drive and get some inputs from these vision language models to get a generalistic view of the surroundings and were able to control the vehicle. But what they also mention is that the latency is not there. You send something, you get something back. But when they
Yeah,
tried to cut off that latency in the simulation environment, because there you can just say this is instantly available, then they could see that the vehicle was able to do things that was a bit difficult to do with the rule-based system. It was also able to track objects which were like hidden behind buses, which would have been quite hard for the camera to do. So, yes, there is work being done, and probably it will get better. Again, we see a lot of applications of VLMs in humanoids because earlier it was very hard to train the humanoid robots to, for example, do certain tasks like folding clothes or, like opening and closing drawers. But now with the VLMs, probably it seems to be getting easier. So a lot of research in that direction, lots of companies playing, and I feel like robots and autonomous car are not so far apart. Their
yeah.
ODDs are a bit different, but if you want a humanoid to be walking on the street and doing stuff, then it's equally like a random environment for it.
That reminds me of all the sci-fi movies
Yeah.
where I thought things like this would happen. Well, I mean, that was a very, very insightful discussion, Masoom. So, let's leave it there. And, I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Looking forward to hearing more from you and take care.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to have a conversation with you. And yeah, well, let's bring out more of these episodes in future as
Definitely.
we can use that to track the progress of technology and have a lot of these philosophical discussion because it's not just about the tech, but also how it impacts all of us.
I know. Yeah, this is a very, very, I mean, I learned a lot from this discussion, honestly. And thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Have a good day.
See you. Bye bye. Well, that's it from episode 2 of Beyond the Blackboard. I hope you like this particular podcast, and I'm looking forward to bringing more and more curated content to you. And of course, please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. This is your host Sunil signing off. Take care.